I stopped counting how many times I left a salon holding back tears in the parking lot. Not because the cut was bad, technically, because I looked in that mirror and saw my mother staring back at me, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Today I'm walking you through 7 haircuts that are quietly transforming women in their 60s from looking simply maintained into looking genuinely rich, elegant, and years younger. These aren't trendy cuts that will age out in 6 months. These are structural changes that work with what's actually happening to your hair and your face right now, not what worked 20 years ago. I researched the best haircuts and styling fixes for women over 50, so you don't have to sit through years of trial and error in a salon chair. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, do it now. I post new videos on exactly this every week. Part 1. The blunt bob that's quietly aging you. Here's something almost nobody tells you straight. A blunt, one-length bob past a certain age doesn't read as sleek anymore. It reads as heavy. The weight pulls everything downward. And downward is exactly the direction gravity is already pulling your face. So the two forces stack, and the result is a jawline that looks tired even on a good day. I know because I wore one for 3 years convinced I looked polished, until a photo from my niece's wedding showed me something my own mirror had been hiding. The fix is a soft, long layered bob, what stylists specifically call a lob with face framing layers cut at a diagonal. You want to walk in and say this exact phrase. I want long layers starting at my chin, angled toward my face with the ends point cut, not blunt. Point cutting removes the hard line at the bottom of each strand, so the ends look soft and feathered instead of chopped straight across. The layers around your face are cut shorter than the rest, landing somewhere between your cheekbone and jaw, and they curve inward toward your chin. That inward curve does something almost nobody expects. It visually lifts the lower half of your face, because the eye follows the line of the hair upward instead of downward. The result shows up faster than you'd think. Rosalind, a woman in my building who's 67, made this exact change last spring. 2 weeks later, a man at her book club asked if she'd done something, without being able to name what. That's the tell. Nobody can point to your haircut and say layers. They just register that you look lighter, brighter, more awake. The jaw that looked heavy in a blunt cut suddenly looks defined instead. And there's a bonus nobody mentions. Because the layers move independently instead of swinging as one solid block, your hair actually looks like it has more volume even if you haven't added a single product. There's a texture detail that matters just as much as the shape. Ask your stylist to point cut the very ends with the scissors held vertically, rather than horizontally straight across. Vertical cutting removes tiny triangular sections instead of a flat line, and that's what creates the soft, wispy finish you see on women whose hair looks effortlessly done even when they haven't touched a curling iron. If your stylist only knows how to cut horizontally across, that blunt line will come right back no matter how many layers you ask for on top of it. This one detail is the difference between a cut that looks done at the salon and one that looks like it just happens to fall that way. Length matters here too, and this is where people get it wrong most often. Too short, landing above the chin, and you lose the elongating effect entirely. The cut just frames a round shape with no downward pull to balance it. Too long, past the collarbone, and you're back to the original problem of weight dragging the face down. The sweet spot sits right at the collarbone to an inch below it. That's long enough to still have movement and softness, short enough that gravity isn't fighting you. Rosalind's exact swap was this. From a chin-length blunt bob with 0 layers, to a collarbone-length bob with face-framing layers cut at a diagonal and point-cut ends. Same length range, completely different read. Heavy became light. Tired became awake. And the second haircut on this list works even better if your hair has gotten thinner over the last few years, because it solves a problem the blunt bob actually makes worse without you realizing it. Part 2. The shag that rescues thinning crown hair. Nobody warns you that your hair doesn't just get thinner as you age. It gets thinner unevenly. The crown goes first for most women, long before the sides or the back catch up. So you end up with a strange, flat patch right at the top of your head while everything around it still has some body. Most women respond by growing everything longer, thinking length will hide the thin spot. It does the opposite. Long, heavy hair pulls straight down past that flat crown and makes the thinness look even more exposed, like a curtain with a hole in the middle that keeps getting stretched wider. The fix is a modern shag with what stylists call internal layering built from the crown outward. Say this to your stylist exactly. I want short layers starting right at the crown, then longer layers moving down toward the ends, cut with a razor for texture. The razor detail matters enormously here. It's not decorative language. A razor cuts hair at an angle instead of straight across, which means each strand ends at a slightly different length and thickness. That irregularity is exactly what creates the illusion of density at the root, because your eye can't find a single flat plane to register as thin. The layers at the crown should be short, landing around ear length, because short layers stand up and away from the scalp instead of lying flat against it. That lift is what gives the appearance of thickness. It's pure engineering, not magic. As the layers move toward the back and sides, they get progressively longer, blending down into whatever length you're keeping overall. This creates a shape that's fuller at the top and softer at the bottom, which is precisely the opposite silhouette of what thinning crown hair naturally does on its own. Colette, a retired teacher I've talked to about this exact issue, made this switch after 18 months of watching her part line widen in every photo. Her stylist gave her the crown layered shag with the exact razor technique above, and she told me the difference showed up the very first morning she blow-dried it herself. The crown held lift for hours instead of collapsing flat by mid-morning the way her old cut always did. Her husband, who apparently never comments on haircuts, asked if she'd started using a different shampoo. That's the tell again. People can't identify what changed. They just see more hair where there used to be visibly less. There's a styling habit that locks this cut in place, and it costs nothing extra. After you've dried your roots upside down, or with a round brush lifting at the crown, apply a small amount of texturizing spray only to the crown section. Then scrunch gently with your fingers rather than smoothing it flat. Smoothing is the instinct most of us have from decades of styling thick hair, but with thinning crown hair, smoothing is the enemy. Texture and slight roughness at the root is what holds lift through the day. This is also why the razor cut matters so much. Razor cut ends respond to texturizing product completely differently than blunt scissor cut ends do. They grab and hold shape instead of falling flat again within the hour. Colette's swap in exact terms. From long, flat, one-length hair with a visibly thin crown, to a razor-cut shag with short crown layers building into longer length below. Same total hair length kept, completely different volume story told at the root. And the next haircut solves a problem that shows up on almost every face over 60 whether your hair is thick or thin, because it's not about density at all. It's about where your face has actually softened. Part 3. The curtain fringe nobody explains properly. Most women over 60 who try bangs make the same mistake, and it's not the bangs themselves, it's the shape. A straight across fringe, cut in one flat horizontal line, sits like a hard border across the forehead. It doesn't soften anything. It just adds another straight edge to a face that already has plenty of horizontal lines from age doing its own work. The result is a fringe that looks like it was added on top of the face rather than grown out of it naturally. The fix stylists are quietly recommending to their older clients right now is the curtain fringe, cut long and parted in the center, so it falls open around both sides of the face rather than sitting as one solid piece across the forehead. Tell your stylist this exact phrase. I want a curtain fringe that hits at my cheekbone on each side, cut with a slight point at the tips, parted down the center. The center part is what makes this different from a regular side-swept fringe. It means the fringe genuinely opens like curtains on a window instead of sweeping to just one side. What this shape does structurally is soften the two areas that show age most visibly on the upper face, the outer corners of the eyes and the temples. Because the fringe pieces fall diagonally rather than straight down, they create a soft diagonal line that draws attention toward the cheekbones instead of the forehead lines. This is the same principle painters use when they want to guide the eye across a canvas. A diagonal line reads as movement and softness. A horizontal line reads as a stop. Your face has enough horizontal lines already from decades of expression. The last thing you want is your haircut adding another one. Diane, a woman I've corresponded with who's 71, told me she'd avoided bangs for 15 years after a bad blunt fringe in her 50s that she said made her look boxed in. When she finally tried the curtain version last year, she said it took her 3 days to stop doing a double take every time she caught her reflection. Not because it looked strange, but because it looked like a genuinely different, softer version of her own face looking back. Her daughter, seeing photos from a distance, thought she'd had some kind of subtle procedure done. That's the effect a well-cut curtain fringe has. It reads as rejuvenation rather than as getting bangs. Length is the detail most women get wrong when they ask for this at the salon. If the fringe pieces are cut too short, landing above the cheekbone, they lose the diagonal sweep entirely and just look like short bangs that happen to be parted. The pieces need to reach at minimum to the top of the cheekbone, and ideally blend into the rest of your layers, so there's no visible line where the fringe ends and the rest of your hair begins. Ask your stylist to blend the fringe into the front layers with no visible seam. That blending is what makes it look like your hair naturally grew this way, rather than looking like a fringe was added as an afterthought. Diane's exact swap, from a short, blunt, straight-across fringe, to a long curtain fringe parted at the center and blended seamlessly into her front layers. Same commitment to bangs, entirely different result on her face. The next cut on this list takes a completely different approach, because instead of framing the face, it's about restoring shape to hair that's lost its structure entirely over the years. Part 4. The pixie that reads as rich, not severe. There's a version of the pixie cut that ages a woman 10 years in the wrong direction. And it's the one most stylists still default to unless you specifically ask them not to. It's cut too tight to the scalp, too uniform in length all over, with no movement anywhere on top. That version reads as severe, almost clinical, and it draws every single eye straight to the texture of the scalp and skin rather than to the face. It's not that short hair ages you, it's that a flat, uniform pixie does. The fix is what's often called a textured pixie with volume through the crown and longer disconnected pieces at the top. Tell your stylist exactly this. I want the sides and back kept short and close, but the top left long enough to style with movement, cut disconnected from the sides, so there's a visible difference in length. That disconnection is the key phrase. It means the top isn't gradually blended into the short sides. There's a deliberate jump in length that gives you something to actually style and lift, rather than hair lying flat against the skull. The reason this version reads as rich and elegant rather than severe comes down to a concept stylists call visual weight distribution. A uniform pixie puts equal weight everywhere, which flattens the whole shape of your head into one plane. The disconnected version puts weight and length specifically at the crown and front, which lifts the silhouette upward and gives your whole face more vertical presence. Vertical lines read as elegant and lengthening, exactly the opposite effect of the flat, wide read a uniform pixie creates. This is the same principle at work in the shag from earlier, but applied to a much shorter overall length. Margaret, a friend of my mother's who's 74 and has worn short hair for 2 decades, switched from her longtime uniform pixie to this disconnected version 4 months ago. She told me the compliment that stuck with her came from her hairdresser's other client, a total stranger in the waiting chair, who asked what product she used to get that kind of shape at the top. There was no product involved at all. The shape came entirely from the cut itself. That's the tell that a haircut is doing real structural work rather than relying on styling effort every single morning. There's one detail that determines whether this cut looks intentional or accidental, and it's the line where the short sides meet the longer top. Ask your stylist to create a soft, textured transition, not a hard blended line. A hard blend, where the length gradually tapers with no visible break, actually undoes the disconnection effect entirely and brings you right back to the flat, uniform red. You want to be able to see, even subtly, that a decision was made about where short ends and long begins. This is counterintuitive because for decades the goal in haircutting was seamless blending, but at this specific length and at this stage of life, a visible structural choice reads as more sophisticated than invisible blending does. Margaret's exact swap, from a uniform, tight pixie with equal length throughout, to a disconnected textured pixie with volume built specifically at the crown and front. Same boldness in going short, an entirely different final impression. There are still 3 more haircuts left on this list, and the next one might be the single most requested change stylists are seeing from women in their 60s and 70s this year. Part 5. The long layers and the color shift nobody pairs together. Here's the last mistake, and it's the one almost nobody connects to haircuts at all, because it's really about color, but the color only works if the cut supports it. Women keep their hair color exactly the same, usually a solid, flat, all-over shade for decades, right through their 60s and 70s, without realizing that flat, single-tone color on long layered hair actually flattens the shape the layers are trying to create. The layers are designed to move and catch light differently at different lengths. But if every strand is the exact same shade, there's nothing for the light to catch, the whole effect falls flat. The fix pairs long, face-framing layers with what colorists call lowlights placed underneath the top layer, 2 shades deeper than the base. Tell your stylist this exact phrase. I want soft, long layers around my face, and lowlights woven underneath the surface, not on top, about 2 shades darker than my natural color. Placing the depth underneath rather than adding lighter pieces on top is the detail that changes everything. It creates dimension you see only when the hair moves, rather than a static, obvious multi-tone look painted across the surface. This works because of how layers naturally sit on the head. The top layer sits over the layers beneath it, so any color placed underneath is only visible in glimpses, when you turn your head, when a breeze moves your hair, when you tuck it behind your ear. Those glimpses of depth are what create the appearance of thickness and richness that flat, single-tone hair simply cannot produce, no matter how good the cut underneath it is. It's the visual equivalent of a well-tailored jacket with a contrasting lining. You don't see it constantly, but every time it's revealed, it reads as considered, expensive, intentional. Eleanor, a woman I met through a reader message who's 69, had worn the exact same all-over color for over a decade. She told me she genuinely couldn't remember the last time she changed anything about it. When her colorist added lowlights underneath her layers for the first time, she said the difference she noticed most wasn't in a single photograph. It was in motion, in the mirror, walking, turning her head at dinner. People started commenting not on her hair color specifically, but on how healthy and shiny her hair looked, which is exactly the read lowlights create even though technically nothing about the hair's actual condition had changed. The shade choice matters more than most women expect. Going more than 2 to 3 shades deeper than your natural base creates too much contrast, and instead of subtle dimension, you get visible stripes when the hair separates, which looks dated rather than rich. Staying within 2 shades keeps the effect soft enough that it reads as natural depth, rather than an obvious technique. If you're mostly gray or silver, ask your colorist about a soft, cool tone lowlight, not warm, because warm tones against gray or silver base color tend to look brassy rather than luxurious, while cool tone lowlights blend seamlessly and enhance the silver rather than fighting against it. Eleanor's exact swap. From long layers in one flat, all-over color, to the same long layers with cool toned lowlights placed underneath, 2 shades deeper than her base. Same haircut she'd had for years, an entirely different sense of richness once the color caught up to what the cut was already trying to do. Those are all 7 changes, and every single one of them starts with a specific phrase you can say out loud in your very next salon appointment. You now have 7 exact phrases you can say in a salon chair that most women your age never think to ask for, and every single one of them is doing real structural or color work, not just chasing a trend. That's the difference between hair that looks maintained and hair that looks rich. Out of all 7, which one is speaking to you the loudest right now? The layered bob, the crown lifting shag, the curtain fringe, the disconnected pixie, or the low light color shift? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Next week I'm covering the exact words to avoid saying to your colorist, because some of the most common requests are the ones quietly working against you. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.